Radio Rahim with Dominic Ingle. You trained in Kell Brook. We all talk about how much Khan either wanted or didn't want the fight, how much Brook wanted or didn't want the fight, but very little is talked about. You've been with Brook the whole time. How is it you having waited so long for an opportunity to get Kell ready for this fight?
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad this fight's come along because it's been very easy to train Kell because he's been motivated for this fight. It's a fight he's always wanted. And I think that's where he suffered in the past, where when he became world champion, he wasn't getting the fights that he wanted. He wasn't getting the big names, and he had to box his mandatories. And, nobody really, wants to fight him. And he had to step up to fight Golovkin, really, to get a challenge. He did. That was his, after winning the world title, his biggest challenge was Golovkin. And then he boxed Errol Spence afterwards. So it's been a long time in coming. And I'd only be training Kell for this fight if I actually thought it was a fight he was capable of winning. He was capable of going through the camp and doing the work required to beat Khan. And when I listened to Brian saying that, he can see it in Kell's eyes, he doesn't want it or he's broken or whatever, it's just a load of rubbish because, I've been with Kell since 10 years old. I think I'm in a good place to gauge what Kell Brook has got left and hasn't got left, as opposed to Brian, who's been with Khan for maybe 12 to 16 weeks. So, I know what makes Kell tick. I've been in a number of fantastic camps with him. I've been in camps when it hasn't been great. I've been him at his highest points and his lowest points. So I've got a very good understanding of where he is. And that's why I took on this job. His last fight for Crawford, I was given the option to train him. And I said to him, personally, Kell, I don't think you're in the starting place to be in a position to give Crawford a good fight. You've only got 12 weeks to go. You're not in a great place now. And he's a top level fighter. So he didn't take that advice. That's fair enough. He's the boxer. He's the man. And I passed upon that chance for this fight. I know what he's put in, the training he's put in, how much he's been committed to it, and how he's performed. And I'm very happy where he's at and to take this fight.
How difficult was it along the road? He said since he was 10. Well, almost since he was maybe 19, he's wanted to face Amir Khan. And having the opportunity to win a championship but still not get the big fights, maybe this was the difference. If he could beat Khan, get in the ring with Khan, it would have changed the trajectory of his career and life. Has it been difficult dealing with your fighter having something like on his shoulder, a chip on his shoulder like that?
I don't think he's had a chip on his shoulder, and I think he was a little bit misguided or led to believe that because Khan had got this old adulation boxing in the Olympics, and he got beat by Kindle and then in the Olympics, but beat him in a fight afterwards, an amateur fight, and he was the darling of the nation. He was a very good story, very good backstory, an Asian guy from Bolton, carrying the flag for England. He looked brilliant in the amateurs, and Kell went a different place. Kell wanted at 18 wanted to be a professional, and he went down that route. And Kell boxed on undercards, on little shows, and worked his way up. And it was a long time before he became not the A side of the card, but the top of the bill. Khan, more or less, as his career started, his first fight, it was the main attraction, even as a 6 and 8 round fighter. So he's had that side all the way through. He's always had the privileged end of it all. He's had to do the work, and even when he got beat against British Prescott a year later, less than a year, was world champion. So they did a fantastic promotional job on him, and all the way through his career he's done that. And I think more than anything, Kell thought, well, if I beat Amir Khan at any point, 18, 19, 20, 21, I will take over where he's left off. That's not how it works. Khan's a different personality to Kell. He's endeared to the nation. He was on BBC TV. Everybody was a household name. Whereas, you've got to be in the Olympics and do really well to have that crossover, from just sports TV into national TV. And I think Kell kind of realised that no matter what he did, whether he beat Khan, if he had beat Khan early on, people would have said, well, Khan weren't all that. And maybe that's why, Khan's gone different routes. And finally, now at the end of his career, he's chose to fight Kell. And I personally don't think it's a fight he should have took, because he didn't need to take it. I don't know why he's taken it. It's a fight that we needed. It's a fight that Kell needed for lots of reasons. And I think Kell's just so happy he's got the fight. Whether Khan was pressured into it, or whether the money was too much to turn down, or people advised him that Kell Brook's shot or broken, it's going to be an easy fight.
Well,
whichever way it is, Kell's going to get more out of winning this fight than Khan is. Khan stands to lose more because his reputation is going to go down the pan. He could have walked away from boxing and still be who he is, because people still revere him now.
The matchmakers and the bookies, they've got Brook as the favorite in the fight. And you say that this is a fight that Khan didn't need to take, and it's one that Brook always needed. Well, that, or at least needed. He may have always needed the fight, but earlier on, Khan would have certainly been the favorite. Do you think that there was a time when Khan could have beaten Brook?
What kind of weight do you give to the bookies? You're in boxing, you watch a lot of boxing, you watch more boxing than me. You know, what percent would you say the bookies are right?
The bookies are right more than they're wrong.
Usually the case. I mean, you've got to look at it. I mean, I just don't think Khan needed this fight. We needed the fight. Kell needed the fight. I think Kell would have been very dissatisfied if he hadn't, finished this fight and got into the ring with Khan, win or lose. And I just think whether it's Khan's arrogance or his belief or whatever it is, I think he's been talked into it. I do think he's like, people have been around him and telling him he's looking good or he needs to get himself back in the mix again. But whether he's just got the what can I say? I don't know whether he's got a need for the people, for the public and the people to like him and challenge himself. I don't know, but he could have walked away from this quite easily and still been, after beating, Billy Dibb, he went out on a win. He's taking another risk again, and it's almost like, if he beats Kell Brook, people say, well, yeah, so what? If Kell, he stands to lose more losing than he does, by winning.
But for Khan's sake, he's always reached for the big fight. Like the biggest fight he can get, he'll get it and he'll take it. Maybe that's not advisable. This is probably the biggest fight Khan can get right now.
The question: why has he waited? Almost, he fought Crawford in April almost 3 years ago. Why has he waited this long? Has he waited this long, or has the fight's not been there, or what? What's the situation? Why has he waited? Almost been like really unofficially retired for almost 3 years to come out and fight Kell Brook, who was active, a year last November against Crawford, and been a bit more active than Khan over the last couple of years. And, that's probably why the bookies have made him favourite. I don't know. But, it's not a fight Khan needed, is it? He's moving in different areas now. He can't be a boxer all his life. He's gone into TV. He's got his own little mini-series with his wife. He could have gone into other stuff.
This is probably the biggest fight he can get right now, and before he had bigger fights he could get. But the question was, do you believe earlier in the career that there was a time when Khan could have beaten Brook, whereas he can't beat him now?
I think all the way through the careers, no matter what, people always talk about Khan's chin and everything else. I don't think, look, we talk about him having a glass chin. Anybody who gets hit properly with force, look, he's been in with big punchers, Canelo, Crawford, it's almost that he leaves himself open to take that shot. I think, he's been hit with big shots and still, wobbled and come back through them. But sometimes that ability, the way he is when he just tears into a fight and fights back and doesn't protect himself is where he's left himself vulnerable. And I think all the way through the careers, probably up until them being, 30, 31, 32, I think it was always going to be a 50-50 fight. I think it's a case of who can implement their style best. Can Khan box and keep it long, or can Kell close him down and catch him? I just think now at this stage, Khan's had a lot of time out. Yeah, Kell's had a bit of time out. He has. I just think it's going to be harder for Khan to drag himself back to that speed thing, because that's what won him most of his fights. That's where they talk about Khan, the speed. And speed does diminish with time. It's a fact. It does diminish with time. Power doesn't tend to diminish. Punch resistance does tend to diminish. So I think at this point, Khan has actually put himself in a position where he's more susceptible to getting beat at this stage of his career.
The Danny Garcia fight with Amir Khan, a lot of people credit the emotions of Khan for having opened himself up to being knocked out the way that he was. He was too angry and too aggressive and didn't stick to the game plan because of how much he wanted to beat Danny Garcia. Is Kell Brook in danger of having that kind of emotion take over when he finally hears the first bell ring for Amir Khan?
No, I don't know. He won't. Emotion won't take over. He knows what the game is, Kell. He's very calm under pressure. He's been in with the big names. We've had a good talk about this. He'll be calm. I look at the Garcia fight, and the way I read it is Danny Garcia is a tough kid. Amir Khan looked great for the first, 3 or 4 rounds, he was landing on Garcia, and Garcia kind of took the tough man approach and just blocked and walked in and threw what he could, and knowing eventually would catch Khan. So he was under fire a lot of the time through those rounds. But he wasn't. He's a good boxer, don't get me wrong, but he's not as good a boxer at range as Khan is, and he kind of absorbed shots to get his own shot off, knowing full well the power probably went with him, and the gamble paid off. Whereas you look at Canelo almost let Khan punch himself out a little bit, get complacent, and just picked his shots and then finished off with one big shot. Different approaches every time. So I know what you're saying about his emotion getting taken over, but I just think Khan realised that he'd more or less thrown everything at Garcia. And, Garcia was still walking into him. He hasn't really had made a dent in him. He was catching him with shots. He was probably losing the rounds, Garcia. But I think Khan thought, well, I've done my game plan. I'm throwing everything at him. I've kept him long, and he's absorbing it. And now it's a bit of a do-or-die situation. I got caught. Instead of composing and boxing, he thought, I ain't got another 6 rounds in me or whatever it is. I'm going to have a fight with this guy and see how it goes. And that's what happened. You know what I mean?
Lastly, you talk about maybe it sounded to me like you would have advised Khan to retire after Dib. He retires on a win. He's got other things to do. It's a good spot. And everyone's talking about, well, what does the loser do in this fight? Do they retire? But what about if Brook wins? This is the biggest fight he's got coming. He's won the fight that he's wanted his whole life. Would that be a time when you would advise him to retire on a win?
It depends how he fights, and realistically, at 35-year-old, it's a dangerous place to be as a fighter, especially with a name, because everybody's trying to cut the teeth on you. It depends how he wins. It depends what's offered next, and he could then find himself in this position again with a younger, hungry fighter. It could be Conor Benn, for argument's sake. It could be that. I'm thinking, well, I've got the experience and whatever. And just like Manny Pacquiao did against Ugas, after beating Keith Thurman, who Keith Thurman boxed very well the other week, and you think, what happened to Manny Pacquiao? What happened? Why did Ugas beat him? He went from beating Thurman 1 minute to losing to Ugas the next. So he got old overnight. It happens for whatever reason. Sometimes it's just one of those physiological things you can't help. And what I've seen with Kell in training is he's overcome all that kind of, what we'd say physiological decline. He's trained well, he's sparred well. He's been with some guys who weren't the correct sparring partners for him, but they could punch. And he's been hit hard on the odd occasion, and he's took the shot well. So I know his punch resistance hasn't gone. I know it hasn't. So then we got the sparring partners in who were quick and fast, like Khan, and he handled them well as well. He handled the speed. So we kind of tested him on all fronts. If at any of them spars, he'd have wobbled, or he was getting outspeeded, or he wasn't doing what he would normally do, I'd think, we're going to have to be very, very careful in this fight. But what I've seen from the training, he is where he needs to be for this fight. The thing now is that we will know in the first 4 rounds how this fight's going to go. The first 4 rounds, after 4 rounds, you'll be able to sit down, because you're a boxing expert, and say, this fight is going to go this way now, just like I'll be able to do.
Everyone's discussing what it means to each fighter to win. What would it mean to you to train Kell Brook and be successful in beating Amir Khan after all these years?
What you have to remember about fighters is that the good fighters is they give credit to themselves for getting where they've got to get. And you've got to admire them for that, because it is, no matter what I think as a trainer or Bomac thinks as a trainer, you tend to find that good fighters get through fights regardless who's training them, but it's how they get through the fight. If they listen to the trainer, they've got a good trainer, they perform really, really well. Kell Brook, when he boxes a Rafa, I didn't train him, he got through the fight. When he boxed Crawford, I didn't train him, he got stopped, uncharacteristically he got stopped. I didn't think his punch resistance gone, I just think he did something wrong somewhere along the line. But, he's back training with me, and I like to think that I know whether things go wrong with him, I know whether things go right, and it's a kind of keeping him on the tracks. And for him, if he wins, it's fantastic for him, I'm glad for him. But I've got to go on. I've got another career training other people. Kell's coming to the end of his career. It's great if he pulls this off, and I think he will. It gives me a bit of credibility till the next one comes along, And if you're winning, you get credibility. If you're losing, you're in a rut or you're losing or whatever. You've got to have the winning fighter. And luckily, we've had some good fighters over the years. And it's a two-way thing. It's a two-way relationship.
And before I let you go, lastly, we saw Juan Manuel Marquez drink his own urine. I thought at the time he was just sending a message to Mayweather that this is how dedicated I am. This is how much I want the fight. And I think you're winding us up with this whole drinking of the sweat. And maybe if the intention is to show Kell he can trust you and how much you're dedicated to his victory. Am I wrong?
Well, was it the Mayweather fight when he did that, or was it the Pacquiao fight? Was it Mayweather?
It was Mayweather.
Yeah. Do you know what the term is used for drinking your own urine? You know what it's called?
Insane.
No, it's called urophagia. And there's a lot of proponents of that method of drinking your own urine, believing that the waste products or the minerals or the antibodies what are coming out of your urine benefit you and make you stronger. And a lot of people do that, and it's an ancient ritual as well. Marquez, I think he gave Mayweather a decent fight, and I'm not sure after that is when he stopped Manny Pacquiao. Before that, I don't know, but he was in fantastic shape. Yeah, after, so maybe he carried it on. But it's funny, somebody's told me today that particular thing's trending. It's causing a bit of a storm, and everybody's interested in it, and it's promoting the fight. So, I'm going to leave that open for now. I'm not going to tell people whether it's right or wrong. People, even when you tell people, if I say I didn't do it, he did. If I say I did do it, people say,
I think you did it. I want to know why you did it.
Maybe you did. Maybe we did. Maybe we do stupid things like that on camp, to entertain ourselves. We get that bored. But, I'm not going to reveal at the minute. If we get into next week and people are still interested, we might have a story about that or do an interview. But for now, it's a talking point. It was funny at the time. Have a laugh and a joke about it. And we might say next week.
Are you saying you weren't sending a message with that action?
You know what? I would imagine that a psychologist might look at that and think that's what I'm doing. Maybe I did, maybe. It's whether I drank it or not, though, isn't it? And whether it was actually sweat or it wasn't sweat, or maybe it was or maybe it wasn't. Who knows?
Who knows? Cagey about this one.
It don't matter to me. I could have done it. I might not have done it, but, it's interesting. Do you think it was interesting?
I thought it was wildly interesting, and I'm still interested in figuring out how and why this came about. I think you had more thought into this than it appeared on camera.
You know what? It might be one of them things I did, without realising. And you know what? You're not going to be around next week, but even after the fight, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have this conversation again. All being well and good that Kell Brook wins, and if he wins, we'll have a little chat about that one, shall we?
All right, we'll have that conversation on the night. Since I won't be around next week,
Okay.
As soon as the fight's over, we'll talk about it.
We'll have it on the night, yeah.
Oh, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. I can't wait to see you in the corner on Saturday night. After all these years, the fight we've all been waiting for. Amir Khan, Kell Brook, Dominic Ingle there in his corner.
Just before we go, you'll know better than me. I mean, I need to know what I'm going to expect on Saturday night. Does Bomac get into the corner, into the ring, does he stand at the side?
I believe he stands on the side. He doesn't get in there.
The
I don't think he does.
Do you think that could take up too much time getting in and out and he wouldn't be able to do what he's got to do or not?
I don't know. I think that's just where he coaches from. Is that what you think?
I just want to know what to expect. So if he stands on the edge, that's what he normally does. That's all right. If he does anything different, I'd like to know.
Oh, well, I guess we'll have to review the tapes.
Okay.
Radio Rahim with Dominic Ingle.
Thank you.